I have 3,000 hours on Grand Peace Online, and I know that hurts to hear, and it hurts me to say as well. But I think it also makes me pretty qualified to talk about the core issues of this game, and not even just now, but the core issues of this game that it's had in all of its existence since it came out. Because I've been playing this game for 3 years now, and I've been in every single different element of the game, whether it's PvP, PvE, trading, talking to developers, events, you name it. I know what the fuck you're talking about because I played this game for 3 years. And I think I've played it too much because it was pretty much the only thing I played throughout high school. And yeah, it's not too great right now. Before I get into everything, I am a new channel. This is one of my, I think, my fifth or sixth video I've ever made on this channel. So I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe, and I hope you enjoy. I want to make this concise as possible because I know nobody wants to hear about Grand Peace Online for 20 minutes. But let's just put ourselves in the perspective of Foyu. He has a, let's say it's update 3, let's say it's 4 or 5, whatever. He has a paid game where the people who are buying his product understand that what they are buying is what they want. It's a difficult game that meets their wants and needs, and that's why it was successful, is because you have a paid game which has the incentive of exclusivity, which means that people who buy the game feel like they're paying something of high quality, and that's what they got. But the problem with Grand Peace Online stems from when the game went free. On paper, it sounds really nice to have your game accessible to probably at this point millions and millions of more players because there's a lot of people who can't pay $1, and that's fine. Um, and that's honestly a really good thing when you make your game free. But Grand Peace Online selling point was that it's difficult, it's time consuming, but that's what people paid for. That's why it was successful, is because people had an exclusive game that was difficult to play. Now, here's what goes wrong when making a game free is that your paid player base, your player base that has the strongest connection ties to your game, now are losing their incentive to stay with the game because they lose that exclusivity. And on top of that, the new players coming into the game aren't going to be meeting the same appeals, wants, and needs as the player base beforehand because the player base beforehand paid for a game knowing what they were getting. Now you have a new player base who's not paying for the game and don't know what they're getting. But when you understand demographics, you understand that free players who don't have the resources to pay for a Roblox game are 9 times out of 10, even more than that, don't have the time, the commitment to play a difficult game. So when you don't change your gameplay, but you make it accessible to millions of more players, you lose not only your previous player base connection, but you also aren't really creating a connection with your new player base because the game is now not appealing to either community. The players that were playing before, some of them, like most of them, are going to stay, but a lot of them are going to leave because that was a big incentive. It's a big thing to have something exclusive. People like jewelry because they feel like they're the only ones with it. People like expensive things because other people don't have it. That, and on all honesty, that's not a take from me. That's just how the human brain works. So when people lose that, they don't want to play the game anymore. Now, let's just continue going down the line. Updates keep happening, and the game is free, whatever. Foyu never in his time updating the game has ever changed the gameplay. From this day, and I've talked to developers about this, from this day, there are quests in the game that have been talked about being changed to make the game more accessible, make the game more playable, more fun for years now, and they still haven't done shit about it because what's wrong with the game? They don't want to change it. They don't want to take the time to fix their game because here's what I'm going to say now, and it's the hard truth, is that when a game stops being profitable, the incentive to develop on it goes away as well. Grand Peace Online is not a passion project. Grand Peace Online is a project that is meant to support somebody's rent. And I think it's done so very well. And in the past, it was worth it. But now, at the current player base, what is the point? If you think about it from his perspective, why update? Why fix his game when he can work on a different game that's going to pay him vastly more? What's the point? There is no point. The game's lost. And it's lost because of those decision makings at the very earliest stems of the game. Those first impressions of the game, when you make the game go free, that first impression to all those millions of players, it's lost because you don't communicate with your player base. You don't understand what they feel. You don't understand how they're going to react. So you lose that connection with your players. And when you don't even, he never had a connection with his player base in the first place. But when the developers don't talk to their player base and don't understand how they feel, that's also it just doesn't feel good for us. Like, why do I want to play a game where there's blatant issues that are reoccurring, but they're never going to be fixed? There's no point, because there's other games that do just as good as Grand Peace Online, except the developers make constant updates, and not even big updates. They just make quality of life changes constantly, talking to their community, understanding what their community wants, so the community is involved. But now that the community is not involved, now that you've lost you've had a bad first impression with your free-to-play players, and he did it twice in a row. When you made the game free, you didn't change the gameplay of the game. You lost that player base. When you made the game mobile to play, if you look at the percentage of players on Roblox that play mobile, it's like 80 to 90% of players are mobile. And yet, when you made the game mobile, you got maybe 5-10K extra players. Because the gameplay, the replayability is just non-existent. There's nothing in the game to tell me, say, hey, you know what, maybe tomorrow I'll come back to this game. No. Because at the game, with all the content updates that this game has, the only thing that people are doing is Battle Royale, which is unplayable. There's probably, on average, 2 to 3 cheaters per game. There's Dressrosa rotations, where you just have mindless zombies farming law, and you have trading. And I will admit, trading is honestly not that bad. Some people are going to complain that things are too expensive, but hey, that's how trading is, okay? Every single game in the world, CSGO, Team Fortress 2, they have expensive items that you're never going to get unless you commit hours, days, weeks, months, sometimes years into doing. And that's the reality of it. But I don't think people have ever had problems with trading, and it's not the reason why the game's dead. So I just want to sum it up, is that when you have a player base that you don't understand, but you get lucky and figure out that, hey, my player base likes having this exclusive game, they like playing this game that other people can't play, and you take that away and you don't change your gameplay, you're not hurting just the people who were paid, you're hurting every single player who plays that game afterwards. And it's been shown that with every update after that point, the game stopped growing. It genuinely stopped growing. The game grew, and it stopped, and then it went down. Every update, the game would spike, 150K on Dressrosa. That's amazing. But 2 months later, you're down to 10K. Because there's an issue of players not even being able to experience the update, okay? Because Dressrosa is endgame. It's an endgame island. And getting to that point of grinding takes about 2 to 3 days, which, again, free-to-play players, 9 times out of 10, don't have the time for that, don't have the commitment for that, because they like to play short-term games. They like to play games that they can get things fast. For instance, Blox Fruits. It's a very simple game, very easy to play, and most importantly, which was something that Grand Peace Online should have done a long time ago, was make their selling point, One Piece game, Devil Fruits, accessible. Because if you don't make your Devil Fruits accessible, and you don't have a game, if you don't have a gameplay loop to back it up, then you've lost everything. Now people can't use their Devil Fruits. They can't get to your update islands because the game's horrible to grind in. There's no way for people to enjoy your game. Grand Peace Online is not a bad game. It's just been horribly advertised to people, and for the right and they're right to not play the game, because there's no incentive. It's not fun. There's nothing to do in this game. And there's kind of there's a positive feedback loop in where you lose player base and you lose more because of it. Because people don't want to play a game that's dying. So people stop playing games when games die. For instance, Tales of Terraria was a huge game when it came out, but because of its awful launch, it lost players, and because it was losing players, the game, the player base kept leaving. Say, I don't want to play this game that's dying. I don't want to play this game that's dying. I want to play a game that has players. I want to play a game that has a growing community. I want to play a game that has a community that listens to, or I want to play a game that has developers that listen to the community. Right now, I cannot tell you a single thing that this game has for it. It has no develop. I mean, its head developers do not communicate. Its gameplay loop is unbearable. Its trading is almost impossible to get high value unless you spend years and years, which on a Roblox game is not a good idea. Having high value things in Roblox games, especially around children, children get very upset when they don't have things that other people have. So in the future, if you're ever going to make a game, make trading, you know, not involve expensive items because there's an emotional connection that people have to items, which is sad, but that's just how the reality is. Um, but most importantly, you need to understand that people playing your game are not all the same. Not everybody has the same tastes, and not everybody has the same reason to play your game. Some people play Grand Peace Online for trading. Some people play Grand Peace Online for PvP. Some people play on Grand Peace Online for PvE. But now, PvP is out of the question because that's maybe 1% of the player base that even cares about PvP. Trading is probably holding up the game. And if you think that doing law rotation 5 hours a day is what you need in life, then fuck it, go for it, dude. But at the current state of the game, adding a new island, adding 2 new fruits is not going to change anything because those 150,000 players that are going to come back to your game are going to realize, fuck, I'm not even close to that island, and I'm not sure as hell not going to spend 2 hours getting there so that I can experience the 20 minutes of new content. I'm just going to go back to playing Blox Fruits because that shit took 2 minutes to get to level 500, and now I can actually damage players. I know I said I was going to say, like, wrap it up, whatever, but in short, the game is dead, not because of content, not because of mechanics, whatever. This game was set to fail from the moment Foyu made the game free, and he refused to change the gameplay to appeal to that free player base. So when you lose that impression, that's already a door closed. That source of players is gone. And on top of that, when you make a game mobile player, you can search it up if you want. Mobile players and free to play players often share similar interests, and that's just how it is. That's how demographics are. Mobile players oftentimes don't have the money to buy games on Roblox. So when you screw up both mobile players and free to play players because you refuse to make your game accessible to those player bases, what you get are short term bursts of revenue that aren't sustainable, and then you end up with Grand Peace Online. You end up with a game that's a former shell of itself, that was once a beautiful game that people cherished and loved, that has honestly just fallen into obscurity because it's been overshadowed by by newer games that do what it does better, by games that have communities that are thriving because they're like communities that communicate between developers, moderators, everybody's working together to make the experience better. And most importantly, the game is where it's at because there's a what I believe to be intentional neglect of the game, because the game, while it is still making revenue, I can't imagine it's making as much as it was back in the day. I can't tell you that. I can't tell you with an I can't tell you with an honest face that this game is as profitable as he wants it to be. And I think he knows too that every update he does will just be a short burst of revenue until he until he basically recreates the game, because this game after 3 years still still only appeals to a player base of paid players that has long since left. Long ago they've left to play different games because Grand Peace Online isn't the peak of Roblox anymore. Yeah, I'm gonna be doing more of this type of content. I do like making gameplay videos and stuff. As of recently, I have a lot of time on my hands right now, and I've played Roblox for over 10 years now, and there's a lot, many games that I'd love to talk about and give an actual reasoning as to why they're successful, why they're not, and also just do gameplay and whatnot. So I really hope you guys understand everything I just talked to you guys about. I hope you subscribe. I'd really appreciate it because I am a new channel. I have about 5 videos. But yeah, this was a game I loved, and I still do love it. I don't play it anymore. Only occasionally we mess around in Battle Royale with my friends and I, but other than that, let me know what you guys think about everything I said. Tell me if you disagree with anything. Tell me if there's any points that you want me to talk about in the future. But apart from that, yeah.